Chelsea, welcome to the Lifted Podcast.
Thank you.
So, Chelsea, just to give a rundown for everyone that's listening and the people that aren't watching, my hair looks great. I just want to say that. She's my hairstylist. So she comes to my house, does my hair. How long I've been your client?
I think just over a year now. Because I think it was right before Stampede last year.
Oh my God, and I got my extensions for Stampede.
Yeah, it was definitely
yes. Yeah, and you did the whole blonde, like, mermaid vibe. It was so good. But yeah, Chelsea does my hair. So we have talked a lot on the podcast about toxic relationships, which is like a touchy subject, and everyone has seemed to be in a toxic relationship. But we're actually talking about toxic friendships. So, rundown of just like toxic friendship compared to toxic relationship. What is the difference? Let's talk about it.
I think a toxic friendship hits a little closer to home when you've been in a really toxic friendship. Because there's things you do with your friends that you don't really do with your boyfriend or partner. And I mean that in the way of like, I don't know, you do little things like sleepovers or like go to the mall together and gossip and all those things. And like you tell your girlfriends things you're probably not going to tell your boyfriend. And like, let's be real, we all kind of gossip together and stuff. So I think it's just going to hurt more when you lose a best friend in a lot of ways, just because of the impact it leaves on you.
I agree. Honestly, I feel like with friends, like it's almost like a different connection with a girl.
Oh, for sure.
Like, I mean, I guess partner, whatever. When you're with your friends, like you're saying, there's different things, like even the stuff you talk about and the stuff that you tell your friends, it
Way
might not be
different.
something that you talk to your boyfriend about or to your partner with,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I totally agree. What, like, toxic friendships and toxic relationships, when you're losing like a toxic relationship, it's like the breakup is hard, but losing a friend is almost harder sometimes.
I feel like it just sticks with you. Like, I don't know about you, but like past relationships I've had, they ended. And then, like, I don't know, the first week or two really sucks. But then I'm like, okay, like, get him out of my life. Like, let's go out.
Block.
Yeah, exactly. Like, let's go out. Let's have fun. Get with the girls and stuff. But if you lose a best friend, you're losing, like, that like girl, like you have like such a like soul connection with a girl, I feel like. And it's like, oh, I can't call her up anymore. I can't like tell her what happened today. I can't be like, let's go for brunch or let's cry together and eat McDonald's. Like, you can't really do those things anymore. And you remember which friend that was with.
Yeah, and even when you go through the breakup, so you went through a breakup and you're going to your friends now.
Yeah.
Those friends, if you lose one of them, you're like, you helped me through a breakup or you helped me through different parts of my life. And like now they're gone. It's like, it is hard.
Yeah, you're like, what do I do? I
Yeah.
can't call her anymore. I can't text her. And it's so much easier to go through a breakup when you have those friends there. But it's like, what's a boyfriend really gonna do if you lose a girlfriend, you know? It's like, you can like cry to them and be upset. But at the end of the day, it's different and it's kind of hard to explain, but...
And I was actually that's so funny. I was talking to James today about this, that like when we talk about shit as girls, like other girls just understand because it's more like we're talking about things to just talk. Like literally just get it off our chest. We don't want it like solved.
No.
Like don't solve my problems. Just
No,
fucking
just
listen
listen
to me cry.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Whereas like guys, when you talk to them, so if you talk to your boyfriend or something, he's going to try to solve the fucking issue. And it's like if you go to your girlfriends with the same issue, they'll just be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry that happened. And they'll be like, do you want to eat ice cream on the couch or something?
Exactly. In silence, and you're fine and you're just content being there.
Yeah, and then if you want to rant about the same thing a million times, like your friend is going to be there, whereas your boyfriend's probably like, would you shut the fuck up?
Yeah, like I
tried to
can't
solve it.
relate.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help you solve it and you're making it worse. Like sometimes you just want to rant and cry and then forget about it and move on.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So tell me about some of the toxic friendships that you've been in.
So I'll start like earlier. I guess I've never had great friendships now that I think about it, like throughout school. Like I had a few friends where we'd be friends for maybe the year and then time would go on and then it's like not friends anymore, or they'd find someone better and it's hard, I think. So when I was going from grade 9, which is junior high, to high school, I'm like, hey, this year, like, I don't really care about being friends with people from junior high. Like, I kind of just want to do my own thing. Like, I was a huge choir nerd in school, and none of my friends from junior high liked to sing. Like, they just weren't into that stuff. They were more into dance and stuff. And I was in dance as well, but it was never like a huge passion of mine. I just kind of did it because they did. So I went into choir in grade 10 and there was some pretty cool girls in there. And I just kept thinking like, I kind of need to be friends with these girls because I was with them every single day. And then I remember this one girl, she was someone that I recognized from other friends. And I just went up to her and I'm like, hey, I know you. And she's like, hey, I know you too. And we literally just became instant friends. And I just really liked her vibe and the way that she was. And like, we were both so into singing and that kind of stuff. And it was like an auditioned choir. So it's pretty like serious, not gonna lie.
So you guys already had something in common.
Yeah,
like,
and that was a huge
easy.
thing because my other friends were like, yeah, you like to sing, whatever. We love hearing you sing. But that's as far as it went. So being auditioned and everything for the choir, I didn't know how to read music or play any instruments. I just knew how to sing.
And you had to audition for this.
Yeah.
So oh shit.
So the choir teacher was kind of like, yeah, you're good at singing, but like you can't even read sheet music. I'm like, yeah, well,
You're like,
here
I'm
I
trying.
Yeah,
Someone let me on the team.
I'm really trying out here. So this girl was like, don't even worry, I'll help you. Like she took music lessons, piano lessons, everything. So that to me was just really awesome because I'm like, not only are we like friends, but she can also help me like excel in this class that I'm so like excited about. So anyways, like time went on and like, you know, your friends at school, you kind of just hang out at school. So then she said like, oh, ask your mom if you can come over after school. And she lived like really deep southeast. So we had to take the bus after school. And I remember when I saw her house, I felt so poor and broke just seeing like this mansion that she lived in. And I did not grow up poor or anything. Like we always had what we needed and like we were comfortable, right? But like she lived on the lake, like it was beautiful. You could tell her mom like wanted everything in place and it was just way different than how I lived, right?
Yeah.
So I remember she's like, oh, you want to go in the hot tub? I'm like, you have a hot tub? Like, what is that?
You're like, holy shit, this is crazy.
I'm like, okay, sure. I'm like, but I don't have a bathing suit. She's like, no worries. Like, you can borrow one of mine. So it was pretty nice because we easily like got to know each other more out of school and we could talk about things that we couldn't talk about in school. But I noticed right away she was a super competitive person, and not only in the way of like choir and singing, but just like she always kind of thought she was better than me. And I picked up on that really quickly when I went to her house and seeing the way that she lived. And I remember like we were in grade 10, so I was 15. And when I was in junior high, like, yeah, I did stuff with guys, but like it wasn't like serious. Like I didn't have sex with them or anything. But she's just like, oh yeah, like my boyfriend does all of this to me and stuff. And I'm just sitting there like, damn, like that hasn't happened for me. And like, I'm just like, I was awkward. I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to say to that. And like,
Because you're like 15 and you're
Yeah,
like,
I was
I want to
15.
fit in and I don't want to be weird about it, but also like
Yeah.
I've never experienced that before. Like, what the fuck are you supposed to say?
Yeah, I'm just like, oh, okay. How was it? I don't know. Like, it's
Was it?
fucking weird.
Tell me all the details.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, okay. We're just sitting there, like, in our bikinis chilling. And then her mom, like, opens the door. She's like, are you guys good? And we're literally talking about, like, giving blowjobs and stuff. I'm like, yeah, we're good. Like, whatever. You need some snacks, guys? Like, it was so weird. But anyways, I just started really picking up on these toxic traits of hers. And then I started noticing, like, in the morning before school would start, she's like, oh, meet me, like, here by the library or whatever. And every time I'd meet up with her, I could tell she was, like, judging my outfit. And because she came from money and stuff, she'd always wear the new, like, Lululemon outfits or Aritzia. And, like, I had a part-time job at that age. So, like, any clothes that I bought, like, I bought myself. Because my mom was always just like, I'll buy you what you need. But if you want an Aritzia sweater, like, you have to buy that yourself, you know?
Yeah.
So I just always fell out of place in that way. But I've never had a friend make me feel less than because of what I wore. But I just wanted to be liked by her because of, like, our friendship building and stuff. And just being with her day in and day out, right? Like, I just tried to not pay too much mind to it. And yeah, just as time went on, I could notice more and more, and it would just get worse.
It kind of hits your self-esteem.
Oh, for sure.
Because, like, when you're 15, like, you don't... It's like you've experienced some stuff, but obviously people have experienced more than you or less than you.
Yeah.
So it's like the people that you surround yourself with, like, if they have, say, more money or, you know, like she is, like, her outfits are better or whatever, it's like you start comparing yourself and then it hits your self-esteem because you're like, well, am I good enough?
Yeah.
Or am I, yeah.
Yeah, so I definitely got that vibe from her. And then it kind of turned into us hanging out like every Friday or whatever at her house. And I just remember I was like embarrassed for her to come to my house. And not that like I wasn't living in a decent house, but when you have someone like that that already like is looking at what you're wearing and like they have a hot tub and like it's weird and you're uncomfortable. And I just remember like, oh my God, like I'm embarrassed.
Also, like, why wouldn't you go to her house? Just hang out in her hot tub every Friday.
And she had a lake in the backyard pretty much. Like it was
Yeah.
like, why wouldn't I, right?
Yeah.
So time goes on and we get really, really close. And then I just really start noticing it's becoming like she's comparing our bodies. It was first clothing, now it's our bodies, and like male attention, because her and the guy that she was dating, they broke up. And she came to school like in hysterics, right? Because this guy like broke up with her. It was like her first love. And I'm just like, it's okay. Like, you're beautiful. You're going to find another guy. But to her, it was like the end of the world. And she was kind of like, you don't understand. Like, you just don't get it. Like, he was like the love of my life. I'm like, girl, you're 15, chill. Like, you're going to find someone
Which I'm
else.
actually surprised that you were like that because I genuinely think that when you're 15 and you have your first breakup,
Yeah.
you're like, I'm gonna die.
I
like,
know.
This is the worst thing to ever happen.
I know.
But it's like for you to be like, you're fine.
Yeah. Well, just the way she went about it, right? I'm like,
Yeah.
he already didn't sound like a great dude from the things she'd tell me. Like, it kind of just sounded like he was using her for sexual things. And, like, I could get that vibe. But, of course, I wasn't going to be like, oh, well, I told you so. It was more just like, yeah, like, I'm there for you. But then she turned it into, like, you don't understand. You don't have a boyfriend. And I'm just trying to be supportive and be there for her. But I'd always get the, well, you don't get it. Like, you're not in that situation. And it's just hard for me. Like, I've always been like a sensitive person, and I guess you would say a pushover at times. So I just kind of let her say those things and do those things. And through time, it got worse because her and that guy broke up. And then it's like, oh, this guy in class was looking at me. Like, do you think he's cute and stuff? And to be honest, like, until I turned 16, like, at the end of grade 10, I wasn't super into, like, boys at that time. I'm just like, I just want to, like, go to school, like, make friends. Like, there was just no one I was like, oh, I really want to, like, be with him. Like, I don't know. It wasn't the first thing on my mind.
I feel like some girls are really boy crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I am like you. Like, I just cared about, like, friends. Who was I friends with? What was I doing?
Yeah.
Like, going to school. Whereas, like, I did, and I could, oh my God, there was multiple different girls that was just, like, every day it was, like, a new guy. And I was like, I don't even know how you keep up with all these people, first of all. And second, like, can we just focus on something else?
Yeah.
Like, I actually don't care to talk about them. I don't
No.
care to, I just did not care at all.
No.
And I was like, am I weird for not thinking about,
I know.
like,
I felt that way too.
right? But then there were lots of other girls that would, like, never talk about guys, and they were just there for school and friends and
Yeah.
whatever. But totally, there was always some girl that was like, or multiple different girls that were like, there's a new guy every time. They're like asking if he's hot. They're like, oh my God, what do you think? Like, all this stuff. And I'm like, I just could not be fucked talking
Yeah,
about
like,
it.
I don't care.
Yeah.
And she had an older brother that was, I think, 3 years older. So she started dating one of his best friends, which I was like, girl, like, out of everyone, you're going to date, like, his best friend. And I already knew that was going to be, like, an issue from the start because he was pressuring her into doing things with him that she wasn't, like, ready for, but because she was always, like, in competition, and I feel like she always wanted to be older than she was, it was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna sleep with him. And for me, because I hadn't done that yet, I was just like, are you sure though? Like, it's your brother's best friend. If something happens, you know how awkward that's gonna be? But she loved it because she was getting older male attention. And he didn't go to school with her, so it was exciting to go see him after school. And, like, he'd pick her up in his Subaru and they'd drive around. And, like, that was just what she wanted to be doing. But I couldn't really relate because I'm like, I'm not into that right now.
Yeah.
So, but there was that, the boy crazy stuff. And then I started just really noticing that she was focusing on, like, my body in a really negative way. Like, in school, I was always one of the girls that had, like, a bigger chest, and she did too. And she'd always compare and be like, who's bigger?
Oh my God.
Yeah, all the time.
Shut the fuck
And I'm like,
up.
girl, why does it matter?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I don't know. I just feel like I'm bigger than you. Like, I wear this size. I'm like, that's great. Like, okay, like, I don't really care, you know? And I remember we went to my house one time, and we were in my room, and she took her shirt off and just had her bra on. She's like, take off your shirt. I want to see who has bigger boobs. Like, it was the weirdest shit I've, like, ever experienced. And I'm like, what do I do? Like, why is this happening?
Also, like, when you're like 15, 16, it's almost like, well, you're scared of being judged.
Yeah.
So you're pretty much going to do what people are telling you to do. Because you're like, holy shit, like, I don't want to be weird. But at the same time, like, why the fuck are you asking me to take my shirt off so we can compare?
It was the weirdest thing.
Also, okay, I'm thinking back when I was in fucking high school, I would have been jealous anyways because I had 0 boobs. So, like,
Yeah,
for
like,
you guys to have anything, I'm like, well, that's not fair.
Right? Or, like, give some to the rest
Like,
of us.
I don't care who's bigger. Like,
It was just crazy. And we had way different body types, too. So I'm just like, why does it matter?
yeah, and that probably hurts, like, just having to compare because it puts your mind into, like, well, now I have to compare to everyone else, too.
Yeah.
Because you're making this a huge comparison game.
Exactly. So it was like, hey, well, I guess I have to, like, rip my shirt off in front of her. Like, it's weird.
Wait, who won?
Huh?
I'm just kidding.
Who won?
I'm like, who's bigger?
Okay, like, you know how with girls and bras, it's like the size around, the band size, is gonna also dictate how big your bra is. So she was like a 36 double D, and I was like a 32 double D. So technically she did have like a bigger bra because she was bigger around. But like we technically had like the same size.
Yeah.
But like they looked different because of that, right?
Because of the different size. Oh my God.
Yeah. So I'm just like, we're like literally in our bras staring at each other across the room.
You guys are like looking in
Yeah,
the mirror
we're
like,
I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, it was so
funny.
weird. And I'll never forget that because, like, she almost, like, pressured me to do it. And then we did it, and it was so awkward after. And she's like, I knew I had bigger boobs. I'm like, okay, that's great. Like, I just,
Okay, we
Yeah.
had some, I mean, I can relate in the sense of like, there was this one girl and she was kind of the same in the sense like she had more money than everyone. Like she had a pool, she had a hot tub, she had everything. Like I remember going for a sleepover at her house and like her dad took us to get snacks and he just was like, go crazy. And I was like, really?
yeah,
I
like,
can just
what a
buy
luxury.
whatever.
Yeah.
And we got like these huge bags of chips and like cookies and whatever. And we just like, me and my one friend, because it was like three of us going to her house. Well, there was two of us and then her. And me and my one friend looked at each other. We're like, really? That's crazy. Because like we were best friends for the longest time and we had no idea that like people lived like this. We were like, this is crazy. So we grabbed all the cookies, all the fucking snacks we could because we were like, this is so cool. Like we
Yeah.
can literally get whatever. But she was kind of the same in the sense of like everything was a competition. She was the one kind of like sleeping around and doing things with guys and she would talk about it and everyone else was kind of like, oh my God, like I've never done that or I've never even fucking heard like what
And then
the
you
fuck is
kind
that?
of feel like bad about yourself, like you're not like on the same level as them, which is so stupid.
Yeah. And well, it kind of sucks because you're like, well, you know, first of all, my parents don't have money, or I mean, my parents were fine, but it's not like they had that kind of money that they
Yeah.
had like a pool and everything. And then you just compare to that, but there's nothing you can change about that. But then everything else, like, you're like, okay, well, am I not good enough for like not doing these things with guys? When realistically, like, half of us weren't even ready to like look at dudes. Like, what the fuck?
No,
And it's like, yeah, it's so hard.
it
Like,
is.
yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely just weird to me. Because, like, of course, I had girlfriends in, like, elementary and junior high, and, like, we'd change in front of each other, and just, like, you know, things girls do. We'd do our makeup together, and it was never a thing. Like, it'd be like, oh, she has, like, a big ass or whatever. But it's like we weren't, like, competing. It was just like, oh, girl, these jeans would look so good on you because you have, like, that body type, and we'd, like, share clothes, and it was never, like, a thing. So for her to compare everything and be like, oh, like I have this Lulu tank top if you want to try it on. But I could tell she was like sizing me up and like knowing she looked better in it and it was just crazy. It just didn't make sense to me why it was even a thing.
It's just toxic and it just makes you feel really uncomfortable.
It does.
Like, I remember I stopped hanging out with the girl that was like this girl because I was like, I feel so uncomfortable and almost like I have to try so hard to like keep up, you know, which is just like, you shouldn't have to do that when you're with your friends.
No, it shouldn't be a competition. Like,
Yeah.
it should just be fun and you're young and going through the same stages of life together. And the last thing you need is your best friend being like, oh, I look better in that shirt than you. Like, why? Why does it matter? Why can't we just have fun and both look good?
Yeah.
Like, I was
agree.
always the friend that was like, let me curl your hair. Me being a hairstylist.
Yeah.
Like, let me do your hair. And I'd never do someone's hair worse so I'd look better. Like, I always wanted my friends to look and feel their best. And she was one of those, like, curled her hair every single day because, like, why not, right? And, like, she'd always go get her blonde highlights done. And my mom would do my hair at home. And it was always just, like, just a thing. And, like, her mom would put her in, like, spin classes and stuff. And it's just, like, I don't have the money to be doing those things. But I also don't feel like I need to do those things.
It's hard because it's almost like you have to pick someone that's like on your level, which sounds so awful, but at the same time, like, when someone's doing all that stuff and you're not, and you want to be or something, or they get really competitive, it's not even like it's really an issue until they start making it a competition. Then you're like, well, I was fine with being friends with you until all of a sudden this turned into
Yeah,
a huge competition.
exactly.
So what else happened? How long were you guys friends? Like,
We were friends till like grade 11, like mid grade 11. But after like that happened, things were just weird between us, obviously. I got a boyfriend, and then I could tell I don't think she liked him, but again, competing and knowing she was better than me in her own eyes, it was always like, "Oh, have you guys like done anything yet? Like, what do you guys talk about?" And he was 2 years older than me, so he was in grade 12 and I was in grade 10. And he turned out to be like an awful guy, like abusive, everything. Like it was a horrible relationship to be in, especially when you're 15. But she would like text him and like things like that. Just had, she had this power where it was like, oh, it's not weird. Like, I'm your best friend. Like, I'm allowed to talk to your boyfriend. But it's like, well, why are you texting him behind my back? Like, I get if we're all hanging out and you want to talk to him, fine. But do you really need to be texting him?
and when you're that age, you just, like I said, like you don't know what's right and what's wrong.
No.
So it's like if she felt any sort of like power or anything, she could totally control the situation because
Yeah.
she was like, well, it's fine.
Yeah.
If she tells you it's fine, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, it's totally fine.
It's totally
It's
fine.
not actually fine.
No. So I think one of the breaking points where I really like started to take a step back was I had like a sweet 16 party at my house just in the backyard because my mom's like, you're not just going to go to a random house and do whatever. Like, you guys can all hang out here. So I obviously invited her, and then my boyfriend at the time showed up. My mom hated him, like despised him. But your mom always just kind of knows, right? So she just had this bad feeling about him and her in general. And I remember like at this point I was just like in love with him and like infatuated, and we like had sparklers and we were all like chilling around the fire, and she was standing beside me, and I had like pretty long hair at the time, and she was holding the sparkler up and my hair caught on fire. And I started bawling, right? Because my hair is literally on fire. And instead of her realizing and like quickly pulling it away, she's just laughing at me like, oh my God, I didn't mean to. But it's like, come on. Like, you were standing right beside me. My hair was down and straight. Like, I don't know. It just seemed very intentional. So I run into the house crying because I honestly just felt like she did it on purpose. And the fact that she laughed and didn't feel bad and try to comfort me, it just really like gave a lot of red flags. And then I was inside, like, trying to collect myself. Like, half my hair was singed off in the front. And someone comes in. I think it was one of my guy friends that I've known since, like, grade 7. And he's like, just so you know, they're out there, like, talking. Like, there's, like, the girl that I was friends with and my boyfriend. And he's like, they're getting, like, really close. And it's just, he's like, I just feel weird about it. So I go outside already, like, pissed because she did that to me, and then seeing the way they were together, I'm like, hey, she already texts him, like now they're hanging out when I'm inside crying. Like, they should have come in and like saw if I was okay. But just the fact that both of them were doing that, like, okay, I expect it from him, but her being my best friend, it really hurt. And I'll never forget the feeling it gave me. And my mom right there was like, okay, you need to break up with him and you need to stop being friends with her because that's just not okay. But you know, when you're young and you have a friend, like, it's a lot easier said than done, just like a relationship, to just get out of it. But I did take a step back, but I didn't cut her off. I was like, we can work through it. It's fine. It sucked because my hair was like singed off. But I'm like, you know what? I can look past it. Like, we're still best friends. It's fine.
I would have literally died. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
it was
That's
horrible.
actually awful.
Yeah.
Especially when you're young and like I feel like when you're in high school, like you're so like you care so much about what people think.
Yeah.
So like for your hair to be, oh my God, I would have probably killed her.
Oh yeah,
Like
the
I would have gone
smell of my
crazy.
hair burning,
Oh,
let
yeah.
alone like my hair was like jet black at the time and I always wore it like in a middle part and like straight. Like as my boyfriend would say, I literally looked like Morticia or Wednesday, like so pale, just this like jet black hair, but it was like my signature hair at the time. So when you like fry your hair or singe it off, it has all the like white spots. So noticeable. And it was right in the front. So it was, yeah, like I'd have to tuck it behind my ear. And like,
That's so
it
traumatizing. Like,
is.
especially also like, okay, your best friend that you like actually trusted, and then your boyfriend, and you're just like, what the, oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah,
So you continued being friends with her.
I did, which I don't know why. But I did end it with that guy, and he actually ended up like stalking me, like he went crazy. But it's like, hey, dude, like clearly you like her, so you guys can do whatever. Like at that point, I was just so over it. I think I've always been like pretty cold towards men. Like if something doesn't work out, I'm not the kind to be like, "Oh, like it's fine, like I'll work through it." I'm like, "No, we're done. See ya." I've never gotten back with an ex. I've never like thought twice about it. But
Good.
with girlfriends, it's not like that. It's like I was always like, "No, like we can make it work. It's fine." But with men, yeah, I've always been like that and it's savage, but I think I've just from a young age was like I can't let a guy treat me that way. But why do I let a friend treat me that way? So that was always like really hard for me. So I think that's why I stuck around her. And I do think I was kind of scared of her at a point too, because of how deep in our friendship we were. Everyone knew us as like the best friends, right? So it was just hard to just cut her off like that.
It's kind of hard in high school to cut people off.
Oh yeah, you see them every day.
Yeah, like you don't really have another choice.
No.
Now that I'm thinking about it, in high school, when people messed up, it was always like, oh, it's fine. Or you don't talk to them for a couple days and then it's like, oh, it's fine. We're fine.
Yeah, they make you laugh or something and you're like, "Oh, we're good. Like it's
Yeah.
fine." Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, so that happened and ever since I was like well, definitely younger, but 15, I really noticed that I struggled with mental health a lot. Like I was just really struggling with myself and like her friendship definitely didn't help that. But I definitely became quite a bit of a loner in school because I would get so anxious, so worked up. Like I had to see my guidance counselor twice a day because I just couldn't like handle just I don't know, I guess the social environments. Like I was struggling so much and she just wasn't there for me in that way. She almost took it as like you're being selfish right now because you're not talking to me about a guy or like you're not doing this or that. And I'm like, dude, I'm really struggling. But I couldn't tell her that because it was always about her. And if she was happy, I had to be happy. Or if she was going through something, then I better just sit there and listen. Like it was never an equal friendship.
Yeah, it was always like, yeah, that's awful.
Yeah,
It's so
so
awful.
I really struggled and I started to notice that she really took a step back when I needed her the most. And I remember she came up to me and she's like, I can't be your friend anymore because you're neglecting me. You're not hanging out with me. You're not texting me. And I just can't do it anymore. And I was literally like, fuck you for one. Like I'm literally like crying myself to sleep every night. I'm really struggling. I don't even want to come to school. And that's like your answer. And like that's it. Yeah, so she honestly just ended our friendship, which in hindsight was good because I don't think I would have been able to get out of it that easily. But then bullying really started happening. She turned on me completely. I would come into choir and my eyes would be red from like crying from the last class, or like I'd have to take walks all the time because I'd get so anxious and worked up and I'd lash out on people. And it was embarrassing, honestly, because I didn't know what was going on and I just didn't have friends at the time or any help. And she was the only one that I really like connected with in that way. So when we stopped being friends, I would come into class and she'd like do the thing where she's like gossiping and looking at me and like it was awful, honestly. It got so bad to the point that I had to like quit choir. And it was my biggest passion and everything. But she turned all the girls on me. And they'd make fun of me. Like we'd have these solos where we could audition for a solo and I would like audition and they'd all be like laughing at me while I was singing. And like I'd get death threats and stuff from other people. She'd set people up to talk to me and like try to be my friend. And then I would obviously fall for it, right? Because I just wanted to be friends with someone. And then I'd find out that they like screenshotted everything I said and like, yeah, they were all laughing together and it was
That's
honestly
actually
terrible.
so messed up.
Yeah. Like it was
Oh,
so bad. And my choir teacher, I remember I had to like pull her to the side and talk to her and she's like, "Chelsea, why are you letting them get the best of you?" But I'm like, "You don't get it. Like you don't." I'm like, "It's one thing to have people not like you, but to bully you to the point where you literally don't even want to like wake up, like it's horrible." And she left such a lasting impression on me because of how awful she was to me. And just like, how evil can a person be to like, yeah, have your issues with me, but to turn everyone on me when I'm already struggling and to be like, "Oh, you're depressed. Like, you weren't there for me." Like, I don't know. I couldn't be there for you. I'm sorry, but I was struggling.
that
It was
is
terrible.
so awful.
Yeah.
Especially, I'm just thinking like high school, like the teacher can say that, but I feel like when you're an adult, you have, like we were saying, like you have all these other people to be friends with.
Yeah.
Like you can just kind of fuck off and join another choir if you wanted
Yeah.
to. But when you're in high school, like you don't have a choice. You have to see
No.
these people every day. You have to go to choir with them.
Mm-hmm.
You have to let them literally laugh at you, which is
Yeah.
so awful.
And it wasn't one period. It was like we had it every day for one period. And then every Wednesday we had to go in the morning at like 7 a.m. before school. And then Fridays we had, even though it was a half day, we had to stay after school for 2 hours. Like it was like consuming my life. And I loved it. But I'm like, I'm not going to keep coming and showing up when all these people hate me. They're all like wishing for my downfall. They all think I'm a horrible singer. They're making fun of me. Like I already feel alone, and then to feel alone in something that you love doing, it didn't make sense to keep going. And my mom was very understanding. She's like, "I get it. Like this has done a lot to you and it's not worth your mental health." So,
Do you still sing?
not really, honestly. I took cosmetology in high school, and it was grade 10 to 12. And when I was getting bullied in choir and stuff, I really put all my effort into cosmetology. So it was kind of like a blessing in disguise that I was able to focus on that because that's what I wanted to do for a career. So choir, it was pretty much either choir or hair, unless I wanted to do post-secondary, which I really didn't want to. I'd rather just get it all done in high school. So I was actually able to like fast track it and really like focus on it and do 2 periods a day of cause instead of just like the one. So it ended up working out, but it just sucked because it's something I've loved doing since I was like 3 or 4. And like everyone that was friends with me and all my family knew how much I loved to sing. Like it was such a passion of mine. But just, yeah, it really got to me.
And something when you're that age, like, is so traumatizing that it's like, it's
Yeah.
really hard to come back from that,
Yeah.
you know?
And I had a boyfriend at the time that I did meet in choir, but he graduated. And him and I would sing together, like he was in a band. Like it was really fun. But then when we broke up, I kind of just like lost the passion for it. And it sucks. But at the same time, I found new passions that I have. And I mean, to even just be accepted into the choir for auditioning was a huge thing for me and like a huge pat on the back. And I just felt so proud of myself. So I just can't let that like be my lasting impression that I quit. It's like at least I tried it out and it just didn't work.
Also, kudos to you for still auditioning for like solos when you're
Yeah.
literally being laughed at.
Yeah.
Because I would never, I wouldn't have even tried. To be
No,
honest.
and I was like, do I do it or do I not? But then my boyfriend at the time was like, you need to. Like, you're a great singer. Don't let them laugh at you, laugh you off the stage. Like, you'll probably get it. And I didn't get it probably because the most popular girls dictated it, but at least I tried and I was proud of myself at the end of the day.
Yeah, as you should be.
Yeah. So it all worked out, but I will never forget the way I was treated, turned on, especially at such a terrible point in my life. High school's already hard enough, but being bullied is just, it's a whole other thing, especially by someone that I shared secrets with, had sleepovers with. Like, yeah, we had a friendship, so I thought, and I never thought she'd turn on me in that way.
Yeah, especially going from someone that you trust and someone that you don't trust. Okay, so after high school, did you have another toxic friendship?
I did. So, you know, when you have a boyfriend in like high school, especially, you kind of let them consume your life and everything. So, we dated from when I was in grade 11 until I was 18. So, it was like 3 years. So, he pretty much consumed my life. Like, he was my best friend, my life, everything, like it is, whatever. So, I had some girlfriends in that time, but no like super great friends that I'd always hang out with, but people that I'd text and whatever. So I started doing the mobile hair when I turned 19. And I used to post on Facebook Marketplace when they let you. Now they don't.
Now they don't let you market anything on there.
No, they're
"Oh,
like, that's flagged. I'm like,
yeah."
pardon me. I used to get so many clients on there. So when I was 19, I was still pretty new to hair, but like my prices were kind of going up and stuff, and I was feeling good about where I was and building my clientele. So I met this girl on Marketplace. And she was just like, hey, girl, I want you to do my hair. Like, she was so bubbly and fun. And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I remember I did her hair and we just hit it off right away. And she was also in the beauty industry. So I'm like, this is perfect. Like, it's nice to kind of meet a like-minded person. We're into the same stuff. And then it just kind of turned into us trading services. And then because we spent so much time together trading services, we just really became friends. And I would go over to her apartment, do her hair and whatever. And then we became like best friends. We'd go out for dinner together, go on Starbucks dates, like everything like that. And she's always been a super obnoxious, loud person. Like you either love her or you don't. But I liked having someone like that as a friend because it just kept life interesting, you know? Like I was in a pretty like lame relationship. Like my boyfriend never wanted to go out. He never wanted to do anything. So having a friend like that we could just like go on a car ride and literally laugh the whole time, just have fun. It was just really nice. But she wasn't from here. So she ended up moving back home. But like our relationship just kept growing, and I wouldn't say I noticed red flags right away. If you ask my friends though, they would say she was a walking red flag, but I can be a little naive at times, so I didn't see it for what it was. But I remember she was visiting during my birthday and was like, "Oh, I need to be there." Like, birthdays to her were like the event of the year. Like, we were going to the Met Gala or something. Like, it was just, yeah, I never looked at birthdays that way. But then I'm like, oh, it's fun to actually dress up and care about your birthday. So I was living in my own apartment at that time, and she came over, invited a few of her friends, which I was fine with, and then she had to leave early. But I remember my boyfriend was like, there's something just weird about her. Like, he's like, the way she talks to men on the phone, and just like, she's so self-absorbed and conceited. And he's one of those people, him being older than me too, where he sees things a lot quicker than I do because of experience, where he's like, you are who you hang out with. And he's like, you're a great person and stuff, but when you're with her, you kind of morph into her, even if I didn't realize it or not. Like, I don't know if you've ever had a friend like that where...
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I've had friends like that, or just even being around people, you feel like, yeah, you kind of change into a different person, and that's probably a red flag.
Yeah. So me just being like who I am, I'm like, okay, like, should I take a step back? I don't know. But I didn't see the need to take a step back because of her not living here anymore. I only saw her so often. And it was more like texting, FaceTiming, that kind of stuff. So I kind of knew certain things she was doing was a red flag, but I'm like, well, I'm not really there to see it all the time, so she can do what she wants in her free time. I'll do me, whatever. So every time she'd visit Calgary, she would stay with me, and I would do like anything for her. Like, I'd drive her around. If she wanted to get her hair done, I'd do her hair. Like, I was always just like at her service whenever she needed it. And then she offered me an opportunity to actually come work where she lives. And I'm not going to say where or anything, but I'm like, okay. Like, I thought about it, and at first I was like, no, like, it just sounds dumb. I'm like, I already work here. Why do I need to go somewhere else? But like, it's really advanced my career, like gotten me so many clients. So in hindsight, it was a great opportunity, but I didn't really know what I was getting into by going there. So
We're all like, what did you get into?
Yeah, what did I get into?
I'm like, someone passed popcorn. Like, it's so good.
Seriously. So she's like, okay, so take the bus with me. Like, the Red Arrow, which used to be the Greyhound, which obviously doesn't exist anymore because of the incident. So we went on the Red Arrow, and it was like 9 hours of traveling. So for me, I have my suitcase and my hair stuff plus my like personal bag. And the first time I went up, I think I went for 8 or 9 days, and I was like fully booked. So I'm just hyped to go. I'm like, wow, all these random people I don't know are trusting me to do their hair. I've never met them. And like, she was promoting me a lot and posting me in groups and being like, this is the girl that you need to get your hair done by. And she's like, she's the best. She does my hair. Like, everyone needs to go to her. And she's one of those girls that if she posts something, she gets so many comments and replies, and people are like, I want to know who did your hair because you're you know? So it was really good, like, publicity for me, and it was really good for my business. So anyways, I was promised a vehicle when I was there and promised all these things. So I go there, and this was my first time meeting her family, who she lived with at the time. So she had to work, like, literally right when we got there. So I'm literally in the living room on the couch with her mom. It's so awkward. I feel like I'm 14, like meeting my friend's mom, like at dinner. Like it's so awkward. I'm just like, oh, hi. Like, thanks for letting me stay at your house. So I'm getting like questioned, like, okay, so you're a mobile hairstylist. Where's your car? And I'm like, what do you mean, where's my car? Like, I was told I can drive the car that's here. And she's like, no, you're not driving the car. Like, it's under my insurance. You're not driving it. So, like, imagine it's like the first time you meet a parent. And when you're around parents, you want to be, you know, respectful and like an adult and stuff. But I'm sitting there like, what the actual fuck? Like, why was I promised a car? And like, the mom had no idea.
And you're fully booked.
Yeah, fully booked. And the mom's like, well, you can work out of the studio downstairs. But I'm like, no, like the whole reason people want me to do their hair is because I go to their house. Like that's my whole business is
You're like,
going
I'm
to their
literally
house.
a mobile hairstylist.
Yeah, like I don't know if you know that term, but like it doesn't mean get people to come here. So it was just like this whole mind fuck. So my friend's downstairs working. And she comes upstairs, and I'm just, like, awkwardly sitting there because I didn't want to, like, intrude or whatever. And I'm like, so, I don't know how I'm supposed to work because I don't really have a car. And she literally looks at me, and she's like, well, like, what do you mean? I'm like, what do you mean? What do I mean? I don't have a car. And then in that moment, I could tell she never talked to her mom about the car. She didn't tell me that it was under her mom's insurance. She made it sound like it was her own personal car, but I guess, like, it wasn't. So how awkward is that? I'm being promised all this stuff, and then I go there to find out this was never even talked about.
So talk about trust issues, because
Yeah.
you've now had a friend in high school that's just like completely turned on you. And then you've had a friend promise all these things and you're like, what?
Yeah, like,
You're
what?
like, who do I trust?
Yeah, and trust is really hard, especially after going through what I went through as a kid and as a teenager. So I'm like, really, this is happening now? Like, I was 23, so I'm like, why am I going through this now? So her mom is like, well, you're going to cancel all your appointments to her daughter, and was like, you're going to drive her around. And I'm like, yeah, bitch, as you should. Like, I'm not, like, there's no Uber there. There's no Lyft. Like, there's a bus, but you think I'm going to take a bus with my suitcase? Like, I'm going to get, like, robbed? Like, no.
You're like,
So
yes,
I'm like,
you're
yeah,
going to drive
bitch,
me around.
as
Yeah.
you should.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you already created this mess, so you're going to get me out of it. So in front of her mom, she was such a different person. Like that girl in school that, like, her parents don't know her at all, but at school she's, you know, wearing a whole new outfit. She comes to school in her sweatpants and takes them off, and she's in a mini skirt or, like, short shorts. That was her with her mom as a grown adult. So she's like, yeah, of course. Like, that's what I was gonna do. Like, she just had that, like, mentality. So I'm like, we made the best of it. I hated being driven around, honestly, because I'm at her service. I felt just like weird. Like, I like having my own vehicle. Like, if I want to go grab coffee or lunch, I can, and I'm not at someone's disposal. Like,
well, and it's just not your fault that you were in that position.
No.
Because, like, you were promised so many things, and then you're like if you show up and it's not put together like that, like, you're not allowed to use the car or something, you're like, well, literally, what do I fall back on? Like, I don't live here. I don't have anything that, Yeah,
I'm like, I only know you, and now your family. I don't know anyone here. Like, how awkward and how rude of you to put me in that situation. So I think I went there 3 more times and stayed with her and her family. The second time I went there, my car wouldn't have made it there, so I couldn't really drive it, to be honest. Like, I had a good vehicle, it got in an accident, broke down. So at the time, I could have driven that, but she promised me the car. So then I had this beater, and I'm like, hey, I don't trust it driving like 9 hours. So I kind of had to just keep doing what I was doing. So we took the bus again. I go there, she would drive me around, or her brother would drive me around, which was so awkward. Because I'm like, it's one thing to be at your best friend's disposal, but to be at her brother's, who, like, no, like, it's weird.
Yeah.
And I felt just so awkward and horrible. Like, I'm like, why can't I just drive the car? But, like, I had to respect her mom's wishes and everything. So, the third time I went there, um, she didn't tell me, but she was coming to Calgary midway through my trip. And I was staying with her, and she was supposed to drive me around. Yeah, and I'm like, hey, so what am I supposed to do? Oh, don't worry, my dad will drive you around and my brother. Like, oh God, okay. Like,
At this point, you're like, I'm just thinking about the
yeah,
money.
I'm just like,
I'm
I
just
don't
here
even
for
want to
work.
be here. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'd rather pay like $50 for the cabs here to get around than be at your dad and your brother's like hands. Like, it just, I didn't feel good about it. Just how I am as a person. Like, it just didn't feel right. Like, I was using them, but I also didn't have an option. So she told me that she talked to her brother and he was going to drive me. And she was supposed to leave the next day, like later in the day, but she decided to go sleep over at her friend's house. So that made it even more awkward. So I'm just like, thank you. Like, that's great. So I wake up the next morning expecting her brother to be up and ready to drive me, and he's still in bed. So I'm like, it's so weird for me. So I had to go like to her dad and be like, hey, can you give me a ride? Like,
Okay, at this point, do you still consider you guys friends? Like, what were your thoughts on, like, where was your head at when she was, like, almost putting you through this? You
well,
know?
my first instinct was to cry because I felt so just like mind fucked. And I called my boyfriend and he's like, I swear to God, if you're still friends with her after this, like, he was so angry for me. But he knows it's hard for me to speak up and to create boundaries. But like, what am I supposed to do? She wasn't here. So I'm texting her, like, you told me your brother was going to drive me. He's literally not awake to drive me. Like, you promised me all these things. It's deja vu from the first time I came here. And she was kind of like, oh, I guess it was a miscommunication. Like, the accountability was just never there. Like, never there. So I definitely was pretty checked out at that point, but I still had to stay there for another, like, it was midway through my trip, so another 5 days. Like, just, I didn't feel comfortable there at all. I was considering sleeping in like a hotel because it was so awkward. But I guess the reason that her brother didn't wake up on time and stuff was because the previous time I was there, I offered him gas money for driving me and I had cash on me. And he's like, oh, it's fine, just e-transfer her and she can transfer it to me. But she never did. So it made me look like I used him. And the mom like got wind of that and looked at me like I'm this horrible person that uses people. And so I found that out as well on that trip, and I'm just freaking out at my friend, like, how do you leave me midway through, like, have your family treating me a type of way, like, I'm trying to stay respectful and calm, but like, you're the common denominator of all of this and you're not even here. And I'm being told that I'm the one creating these issues by your mom and stuff when I'm just trying to work.
You're like, I'm just trying to do my thing.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So how did that, like, you guys obviously just became not friends then?
No,
Like,
we were still friends after that, but very like we were very much
Like surface level
yeah.
friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we already had plans for the summer, like Stampede wise, that things were bought for. So I was like, hey, like, this is really just weird for me, but I still go to that place to work and I stay with clients. So while we were still like friends, I would go, but I like wouldn't really spend time with her. I would just stay with other clients and just had to make a bad situation good because I'm like, I'm not going to let this affect my livelihood now. Like, but it was hard because these clients, I'm like ranting to them and I'm upset and they feel bad for me, right? And they're like, oh, well, you can stay with us. Like, I'm a stranger. I'm just doing their hair and they're offering their places. Like, people from Newfoundland, which a lot of them there are the sweetest people. Like, they will give you the shirt off their back. So I'm really lucky that I've met some really great clients there. But anyways, so she came for the Stampede, and it was really awkward because we didn't really talk about what happened. It was just kind of like in the air. So I went to two of the things with her, and then my one friend came to the other one, and we kind of just hung out because it was just awkward, and we just both didn't feel good about the situation.
Yeah.
And at the end of that trip, I came to my friend and I said, look, I need a break. Like, I need time to think. The way you've been treating me just doesn't sit right with me. And for me to even say that was really hard. But my boyfriend's like, you have to. Because if you don't, she's just going to keep treating you the way she is. So we really weren't friends at that point, but I was still doing her hair. And then I had to make the decision to stop doing her hair. And I told her, look, like, this just isn't working for me anymore. I can still do your hair, but I need to be compensated for it. And that's when she just flipped. Like, I created a boundary and she didn't like that. And it just all started crumbling down.
That's awful.
Yeah.
And it's hard because it's already hard to create boundaries with people, whether they're friends, relationship, family, whatever it is. You almost just hope that they react in an okay way. So when they flip, you're like, shit.
Yeah.
So what's like the aftermath of all this? Like, after having your toxic friends and stuff, like how did that affect you, you know?
I think it was really hard at first with this last friendship because it was affecting my business and my livelihood and stuff. And just like when we stopped being friends, it was just like, now that you're not my friend, I'm going to ruin you and your business. And I mean, it wasn't great at all, but I'm still working. I'm still thriving and doing my thing. And I'm not going to let her, I guess, ruin that for me. But it's still hard, of course. And I think the aftermath is definitely my relationship has never been better because she was causing such a strain in my relationship with my boyfriend. Because it was like, hey, you're acting like her, you're doing things that you normally wouldn't do. Every time I was with her, him and I would fight. Like, yeah, he'd call me and we'd just start fighting because he just couldn't stand that I was letting someone like that treat me that way and be close to them. And he just knew she was walking all over me and he just couldn't deal anymore. So when we stopped being friends, I just felt this weight lifted off my shoulders. Like, now I can just focus on my friendships that are meant to be and meant to last and my relationship, because no other friends have caused issues like that in my relationships before.
And they shouldn't. Like,
No.
honestly, that's so toxic. So okay, now if you're thinking of like if you're thinking of like your healthy friends, like the friends that aren't so fucking toxic, because I feel like there's so many girls that don't actually, like you're talking about, like you don't see the red flags of toxic relationships or toxic friendships. It's like there's tons of red flags, but when you're making friends, it's almost like you just push past the red flags because
Yeah.
you're like, I just want a friend. It's like, I just want a girlfriend, whatever. So if people are looking for healthy friends, because it's really hard as a girl to make friends, first of all. Like, I feel like making friends is almost like fucking dating.
It's so hard.
Yeah, it's like you have to like, hang out with them first. And you were lucky because she was your client. So obviously you guys had tons of time to talk. And then she was in the, like, you guys had so much in common already. So when these girls that are listening to the podcast are trying to make friends, and what's, what are some healthy traits that they should be fucking looking for?
I think just finding friends that are genuinely happy for you and they want to see you succeed in any way. Like, a lot of my friends work like retail or jobs like that, but they still want to see me do well. And they're like, it's amazing that you've created like your own business. And like, they're like, we've never seen you do better. Like, I wasn't great at keeping like part-time jobs in retail, and I hated showing up for work, and I'm like, I don't want to be here, like I just didn't find a passion in having a boss tell me what to do all the time and where to put things. So when I did make the decision to go out on my own and do my own thing, like they were all there for me, supporting me. And these are all friends I've had since I was young. Like, one of them was from when I was 9 years old in Brownies. Another one is from junior high when we were like 14. And they all have just been so supportive. So I think finding friends that are rooting for you and want you to be happy, even if they're not on the same path as you, is really all you can ask for. And just having someone that you can tell them, hey, like, I'm struggling right now, or hey, like, I'm really happy right now. And they don't make it about themselves. They let you have your moment because you would do that for them, I think is the most important thing in a friendship.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. I feel like there's lots of like anything toxic is going to be like comparison, and like the first girl was doing just a lot of like comparing and like comparing bodies and like telling you to fucking take your shirt off. You're like, this is so weird.
Yeah, like, why?
Red flag.
Yeah.
Which is fine if you're like joking around and fucking around, but like if it becomes like a game and it becomes like pressure and it becomes almost like draining. When friends become draining and like they're, you're fighting with your boyfriend because you're hanging out with her or whatever. So shit.
Yeah, because it's like, not only is it draining me, but now my boyfriend is also drained and doesn't want to talk to me or hang out with me because it's just like a cancer in your life that doesn't go away, and it only affects like everything in your life, and you can't get out of it unless you end the friendship. And it's like, why would you want someone like that in your life? But I think a lot of people don't realize they're in it because, let's be real, like, we all have our things and our quirks and whatever, and you could be like, oh, that's just her, like, but noticing the red flags versus like a trait they might have is really important. And I think a lot of girls just let a lot of things slide because it's like, oh, that's just how she is. But you can tell when someone is rooting for you and actually happy for you versus pretending or trying to find like a personal gain from what you're going through.
Yeah, I agree. And like, what were you saying? Like the comparison, but also people have different things that they vibe with, and finding things that you actually vibe with, because some girls might actually be okay with it. Like they might be like, yeah, the comparison, I don't know, maybe it helps them.
Yeah, makes them a better person or makes them wanna like get
do
better.
better or something.
Yeah.
So it's like finding what actually vibes with you. Because I'm sure this girl from high school or this other girl probably found great friends that they all get along and whatever. But it's like they have to find the people for them and that
Yeah.
work with them, right? And it's like it's going to be different for like everyone, but like yeah,
Yeah.
you need support and you need to feel like, you know, you're not in competition with your friends because why the fuck would you be?
I
You
know.
know,
It
like
just, like, I want to surround myself with girls, and girls that want to be there for me when I need it and want to see me succeed, and they're happy for me and they want to pay me to get their hair done because it's my livelihood and my business. Like, I don't need people taking freebies off me and things like that because that's not a friend. And you can probably relate on that too
oh, totally.
with running a business. Like, you really can cycle through who your friends are based on all of those factors.
Yeah, and I can totally understand like I feel like with the whole freebie thing, like I give things out all the time to some of my
Yeah.
friends or even some of the girls in the page and whatnot. But it's like their reaction when you're like, no, you actually have to pay. If they
Yeah.
react in a shitty way, you're like, well,
Why wouldn't you?
yeah, like this is my
Like,
business, you
yeah,
know?
it's like if I went to your store and you sell clothes, like, I'm not going to be like, just give it to me for free. I'm going to buy it.
Give it to me or we're not friends. It's
Yeah,
like what?
it doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
And like,
so funny.
yeah, and I have friends where I'm like, oh, for your birthday or Christmas, like, I'll do your hair. And they've been like, no, like, I want to pay you. Like, this is your livelihood. I'm like, no, really, it's okay. Like, I don't know what to buy you, so I want to do your hair, you
This
know?
is your gift.
Yeah, I'm like, this is your gift, so take it.
Yeah.
Stop.
Take it or I will feel bad.
But it's just like, I want to do those things for my friends, but it's a difference between you or I giving someone something out of like wanting to do it and the kindness of our hearts versus them like expecting it because you're friends.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how people think that way and think that they deserve that when they wouldn't even pay you.
It just really shows what kind of person
Yeah.
like it is. So with toxic friendships, if I have because I have a lot of girls listening to this podcast that it's mainly a girls podcast basically. If there's any dudes, hi, what do you how are you still here? Um so what advice would you give? Because I know some of these girls are probably in friendships that they probably related a lot to what you just talked about. Whether it was the first girl, second girl, or they're just like, holy shit, like they probably have a girl in mind. And they're like, oh my God, like, you know, I need to end this friendship or I need to do something about it. What
Yeah.
advice would you give them?
I think I would just say, like, if they're not serving you things that you really value, or there's more cons than there are pros, like, you just need to cut your losses at that point. Like, if you already have in mind, like, okay, they do this, they do this, they do this, but they sometimes do this, like, why? It's just like in a relationship. Like, if you're dating someone and you're like only seeing red flags, but sometimes they'll hug you or whatever. It's just like, why do you want to be in something like that? And yeah, like, friendships are draining if they're not serving you anything. And they really affect you and just the way that you view yourself, even. Like, if you notice your friend just isn't there for you, or they always make things about themselves, you need to get out of that. Because I have some friends where I could say there's more like give than take, and vice versa, where like they kind of always complain to me, and like I seem to be that friend that a lot of people just come to and rant to, which I'm fine with. But it's like, are they going to be there for me when I need it? And all my friends are, and some more than others at times, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Just some people are better with helping you through something than others, or have more experience in it. So I think just having someone that is genuinely there for you and just wants to see you succeed and do well and doesn't see you as competition is just really the biggest thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Yay. Well, Chelsea, thank you so much for coming on the Lifted podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Guys, I'll see you next time. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll put all of Chelsea's info in the description. But yeah, bye.